Buckle up.
Because it's going to be a long ride.
It's going to be a wild ride.
No one cares, but we're going to tell you anyways.
This is Popcorn Chat.
Welcome to the episode. This week, we are having two very special guests. The first time ever on Popcorn Chats where we have two guests at one time. We're so excited to have them on. They are the creators of the hit film, The Promise of the Butterfly, which is available on Amazon Prime. If you haven't watched it, go watch it right now before you listen to the episode or while you're listening to the episode after, whatever. But you need to watch this film because it's
Go watch it.
incredible. And these two lovely people, we have met one of them before because we're in a book club. If y'all don't know, Mikhail and I are in a fun
I think
little
we've
book.
Talked about the book club a couple times on
We've
here.
given them a shout out here and
Mhm.
there, but we got connected to the writer of this film through our book club, and now we are meeting the director of this film for the very first time live on the pod. It's gonna be a journey. It's gonna be fun. We're both anxious girlies, of course. Y'all know this, so we're a little scared, but it's
been a
scare.
day for both of us. Like Katie and I both were texted earlier on in the day, and we're just like, it's been a Friday, guys. And then of course, a couple days before we're recording this, HBO announces that they're releasing Euphoria early. So this episode is actually coming out a little bit later than we thought, because thank you HBO for constantly messing up our schedule.
These are also like the first filmmakers we've ever had on the podcast, so it's really exciting to get a different perspective. It's not just like somebody's reaction to a film, which is obviously great, but we're going to be like interviewing real filmmakers. So different, and we're evolving as a pod, and we're excited. I really hope you guys are listening and not watching this episode because I do not look good right now. It's fine. Mikhail looks great, so just tune in for that.
I never look good when we record. This is like the first time I think I'm not wearing like a sweatshirt and glasses and no makeup.
All right, call me out like that.
Oh my god, I didn't realize I just described your whole outfit.
Oh,
Katie, I'm
man.
sorry. You're still
It's
beautiful.
fine.
And I mean, it's a podcast. You're supposed to listen anyways. You're not supposed to look. I was already ready from work today.
Okay, guys. So without further ado, please welcome to the pod, Andrew Tamarkin and Meredith Kirkman.
All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Popcorn Chats. I'm McKay.
And I'm Katie.
And today we are joined by our two guests. If you guys both want to introduce yourselves as well.
Hi, I'm Meredith Kirkman. I'm very happy to be here.
I am Andrew Tamarkin. Very happy to be here as well.
Awesome.
Yay!
We're so excited. This is the first time that we've had guests that, like we said, no shade to Delaney or Olivia, but like we actually have like people in the film industry on the pod, which is very exciting for both Katie and I. So
Yeah.
we're excited to jump in. First, just kind of to like kick us off, everyone. So one of the things in the film is Doran is like big into what the meaning of his name is. And did you both, when you were making this film, did you guys like look up what your names meant?
That's a funny question. I knew actually what my name meant. Meredith means king of the sea. So it was my excuse, not to eat fish when I was a little girl, because I was like, I'm not going to eat my friends.
Aw.
But and I've always really connected to mermaids and stuff. Even beyond that, I was really named after my grandmother, Edith, and she always wanted to be Meredith. And she was Edith Kirkman. And Kirkman is actually my middle name. And so professionally, I've been going by it for like 4 or 5 years now. And it's truly in such an honor after her. She passed too early, and my mom immediately was like, let's have a child, to my dad. And I was conceived within the year. And so I actually really feel like her spirit is kind of a part of me. And I feel like I have an extra energy to offer in my life. And I think it's because of her. My name is very special, actually. So thank you for starting off with
so
such a great
cool.
question.
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome.
I think names are just really, really important. Names are really important to my family. And I just feel like it's the first way that we introduce ourselves. And I think when naming characters, the meaning of the name is really important. Kind of like Meredith, I'm not actually quite sure what Andrew means. In Hebrew, my name is Anan, which means cloud. And I was named after my grandmother as well. Her name was Anna, and I was the first grandchild born in the family after her death. And so I always felt as if she was sort of my guardian angel, and I felt connected to her because we shared a name of sorts, or at least the root of a name. And so I guess long story short, in naming Doran and talking about the meaning of that name, I thought it could kind of give a subplot to what the story was about.
Yeah,
Totally.
Oh,
You also
that's so
have to
cool.
say your full name in Russian, Andrew, please.
In Russian, my name is
Yes.
Andrei Alexandrovich Tamarkin.
So
Or-
cool.
Right.
I mean, it sounds cool in English even still, but Russian definitely makes it sound pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Katie, do you know what your name means?
Absolutely not.
So I looked yours up, and Caitlin means pure. So I just thought that was kind of it was a
Ooh.
nice nod to like childhood Katie.
Yeah, everybody used to call me Mother Teresa back in the day because I was a pure little church girl, but not so much anymore. Michaela, what's yours?
I wish I had something like cool who I was named after. Like, I think that's just really sentimental that you guys were both named after grandmothers. My parents named me after Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman from the TV show. Like, they just heard that name on it and thought it was cool. Nothing special. And it means who is like God, which, again, I think that's a little ironic.
Yeah, we're both like holy, godly people according to our names.
Like Andrew said, like character names are a big thing, and I like it when people name characters something with a purpose. So I like that was explored in the film with Doran's name.
Yeah, I thought that was like a cool way of like showing one of the film's like themes are without, like telling, if that makes sense. So you guys have a production company together called KT Productions, is that correct? Or Kirkman Tamarkin Film Productions, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Kirkman's Markin Productions, and it was launched in effort to produce The Promise of the Butterfly. We really wanted to set tone in a professional level from the beginning, and that was one way we did it, like for people to take us seriously, because we were in school still, and we were working with a bunch of our friends. We were friends, Andrew and I too. We wanted it to feel as professional and legit as possible. That was kind of the intent.
We felt that it was like a great way as first-time filmmakers to create a platform from which to actually produce this film, instead of just like Meredith and Andrew like producing a project. Let's text you when you need to be there. It's like, let's actually create a company and an online office space, so that way everything can get streamlined through a third party.
Totally.
And I can't even imagine the organization to like get that started, just from like the business side, logistically trying to get that up and running. That must have been a feat in itself before even getting to the filmmaking part of it.
And there were some things that did come after, business things that really would have made sense in the very beginning, but we were fresh and we just didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. And right in the beginning, it was going very fast paced because we had timelines to just hit. And so some things worked backwards in that way. And some of like the true business lessons actually came at the very end, which I think was the hardest thing for Andrew and I. Art comes naturally, and we've been doing art for a while.
I think Meredith and I have we've been lucky to have a lot of professional experiences in our lives before The Promise of the Butterfly. And so we weren't coming at it without any knowledge like of the professional space, the business space, but we were artists first. So I think we really learned by doing, and we made mistakes for sure. But I think there were 51 successes and 49 mistakes. Like there was always still one more good thing that happened. So the project kept propelling forward.
What was like the inspiration for writing this film? Like, was that just all you, Andrew, or was it like a joint sort of thing? Like you guys knew that you wanted to make this film? Like, I guess this is kind of a loaded question, but like, what was the inspiration behind the making of the art like you guys were talking about? And what was the process of like deciding to make this film?
I think we developed the story together. We had known each other for over 3 or 4 years before we even started working in film together. And we had kind of talked about a few different storylines, and we were just finishing up a documentary in December of 2017. And it was an amateur documentary that we had worked on for my senior thesis, and it went really well. And so we submitted it, and it was just the two of us working on it. And in the back of an Uber sometime at like midnight, we had like literally stayed up.
No, it was the morning.
It was the morning.
after not sleeping. So basically.
Yeah, like 5 a.m. or something. We had been up all night and we were like, let's make a movie. Like, let's do the real like narrative film. Now that we can like put piece of documentary together, like let's do this. And when it came to like the actual writing of it, I think a coming of age story just made sense. It was our first film. I don't think we realized that we were going to start to take this seriously. I think this film sort of launched us in the directions of where our careers would go. And so it just made sense for it to be about someone who just discovers they're an artist, because that's sort of where we were in our lives 3 years ago. And they tell you to write what you know. So that's why I think we picked something like that. But I think Meredith can also speak to it being like a dance film and like utilizing like her experiences in Chicago, because I think the story really like ties a bow on how our community and how we lived in Chicago for that time.
Right.
Well, similar to write what you know, it's produce what is producible. So we knew that I knew that I had dancers all around me because I was in a musical theater dance program, and that's honestly a choreographer's dream. So I feel like I wanted to take advantage of that. And that was the first thing I actually truly did, other than helping develop the story early on, was I choreographed the main big dance number. That was like the first thing I did. And I think I might have been even working on that as I was writing the script. I can't even remember. But yeah, and that was kind of a really special way to start out, because that dance is kind of the like symbol of the whole story and like the heart's message of the film, of just breaking free of like the conforming society and like what you should look like, and to match, what the way to do it, and break free of that and show your color and be invincible. It was a nice way for me to kind of connect to like the message of the story through this choreography and be in my comfort zone of working in a dance studio with dancers. That's one of my greatest joys in life. And so I feel like I started off confident in that way. What I had not done is organize 17 to 20 shoots and direct scenes and figure out camera angles and shots. Like there was so many firsts in the actual direction of production. So it was nice to find my confidence with the dancers. Yeah, we performed that at a showcase, which was also really fun and kind of a nice teaser to tell people that we're up to something.
I definitely want to dive more into the dance stuff later on, because that was like one of my biggest takeaways. I cannot dance, but I love watching dance. So when those numbers popped up, I was living for it. You guys kind of already talked a little bit about it, but do you guys want to each state like some of the different hats that you wore on the shoots of this and what you each were responsible for? Because when the credits were rolling, your guys' names were like on everything almost.
Yeah, we definitely played a lot of roles. But back to the question you just asked, how you got inspired. I think one thing that did inspire Andrew and I to team up and collaborate is that we had a lot of opposing talents in the artistic like leadership of projects. And so we were like, oh, I can do this, you can do that. I can do this, you can do that. Because we were not planning to have a production of over 100 people. Like we planned on a few. We didn't even think we needed a budget. Like I'm telling you, we were so naive, just like ready to do it. And yeah, like the opposing talents played strength to us. So I directed it and choreographed it, and director of photography, executive editor, co-producer.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I wrote the film and co-produced it with Meredith and composed the score. And I was involved a little bit in like the production design as well. But I would say those were my three big roles.
And you had a cameo.
Yes, I was an extra as well.
People, like, if they know us, we have like a group, they just adore that moment. Like we got such a big laughter the first time we showed it. And I actually make a select cameo. If you watch it again, it's super very not noticeable because it's a mistake. Well, it's not a mistake, but yeah, you can see my reflection.
Ooh.
And two, then when the credits were rolling, I saw Dan's name in there. So then I said to Katie, I'm like, where was Dan at as an extra? And even Katie, you didn't notice where he was.
That's my bad.
Oh, he's in chapter 5, they're at a cafe where the character of Jules and Doran are talking about kind of what's going on with Doran's life in that moment. And Dan Melcher is drinking a smoothie. Right?
Is he
Mhm. A milkshake.
look behind them?
Behind.
Yeah.
Okay.
My
Interesting.
ex-boyfriend was an extra in that scene too.
Julia Walls' mom is
Oh yeah.
setting a portrait of Julia Walls in that scene as well.
Wow. Lots of book club shout outs in there. How did you guys compartmentalize everything? Like it's hard for me to comprehend wearing the director of photography hat and the director hat at the same time. And like how did you guys go about that?
That was hard. Like I would not really want to go about it in the same way. Like I wouldn't want to wear as many hats. Sometimes at the indie level, it's not possible to really escape that. And maybe we're even seeing that more now in COVID with production with smaller crew sets. Like, I mean, even in regular business, people are wearing a lot of different hats just because of numbers and stuff. So I think it's a good skill, but yeah, there's downsides to it because I feel like there was a lot of moments in the direction that I couldn't really just like soak in and relax and like really be in it with the actors because I was worried about a lot of things technically
Mhm.
and the cameras and working with my camera ops. And so I think having like small groups helped because I think my mind can actually really do like a few things at once. Like I could think about the direction and the cameras and like still be feeling like I'm producing this thing and the choreographer. So I don't know, I feel like my roles were really naturally blended to just like where my skill set is. But I can't wait to work with more filmmakers, and like I think that's just when the true work comes, to be working with these people that really know what they're doing. And like I think I'll feel like I'll be starting to blossom as a director more when I can collaborate with those key players. Yeah, so I'm excited for that moment for sure.
Totally. I just want to say, like, it's a beautifully shot film. It looks incredible. I can tell that you both in all the roles that you played, like Andrew, the score is beautiful and obviously like the story is beautiful and the direction is like crisp and good and the choreo is amazing. Like even though you were wearing all these hats and taking on all these like really large roles, you clearly like gave your all in each one. So that is so impressive to me. And like, you must have been exhausted. Like, I just don't even know how you did that. But I mean, kudos to the both of you. I can't even comprehend it, like in my experience on film sets and everything.
Thank you. It really did take a village. Like Meredith and I may have been able to somehow organize this beast of a project, but like the people that showed up for this helped make it as special as it was. Like Hunter Day as Doran, Jordan Omesh as B, Pooja Prakash Raj, Julie Medina, Anna Romer, Nasser Habash, all of our post-production designers, Julia Walls, our production manager. Like there were so many people who just like had this project's back, and we were doing it for the first time. So like, it's not like we could offer people really fancy paychecks or like anything of the sort, but we always had coffee. We always had food. We really tried to empower people in their roles to make it their own and bring their own artistic spice to the project. Like
That's the special thing about films, is that it cannot be done alone. It does take a village. And so finding that collaboration and bond early on is good. And so I think that's why we prioritize like rehearsals at the beginning to try to create some kind of community. And like we did kind of call it like a collective of sorts of like the people that are stepping into this project. It was really a community. At least that's how Andrew and I felt. And that kind of got us through. We got to do this for the community. It wasn't just about us. A lot of people had gotten involved. And so yeah, production was definitely exhausting. Like I used the analogy, like I felt soaking wet, like a hose.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was left soaking for months. I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of felt that again when we were starting to premiere it and plan these events and go more external and premiere it at the festival. And that was also a very exhausting time. So it's very nice. I cannot believe we're at the light at the end of the tunnel.
How long did you guys shoot for? How long did that take?
6 weeks.
Wow.
Wow.
It was about like 3 to 4 shoots a week.
And you guys shot in and around Chicago. Is that where all of it's done then?
Yeah.
So pre-production was January 2018 until mid-April 2018. Production was mid-April until the end of May. Then we broke after that because, as Meredith said, we were all kind of soaking wet with what production did. So we broke for the summer, launched a new post-production team and business team in September. We were in post-production from September 2018 until May 2019, did private premieres and went on a small tour with the film in the summer of 2019, which included the Vail Film Festival, a Music Box debut in Chicago, a Twin Cities debut where I'm from. And then we were pretty much in the delivery phase for the next like year and a half.
Oh,
and
in the Logan Theater.
Oh, in the Logan Theater in December of 2019. And then we got approved by Amazon Prime, and its final release was December 30th, 2020.
That's crazy. Like all of that time, just like blood, sweat, and tears into this for like 2 years almost, from pre-production to Amazon Prime approval.
Or is it 3, I think?
Yeah,
Is that 3?
2017.
It's
I'm a
3.
dumbass.
The last year, it really felt like 2 working years. And then this last year, like 2020, yeah, it was the slowest pace. We like to thank the COVID for that. I mean, not think, but it did play a part as it slowed everyone's life down. But again, like how we kind of started the discussion with some business going backwards, like we had a lot to learn actually with like some other business stuff that we just, we didn't have at the top of our radar, like managing the project. And so, yeah, I think distribution took a little bit longer than we expected, but we still did it. So that definitely feels good.
As I said, guys, earlier, the dance portions of this movie, I was all over. I loved every single minute of all of the sequences. One of my favorites was when Doran and Bee were in like her apartment in the gray sweatpants, like that one. That was just so good, so cool. So I just kind of wanted to know Meredith as being like a choreographer and then also like directing those scenes, like especially the giant sequence outside too. What was that like, and like the choice to bring it into this film and make it a part of the storytelling for the characters?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the compliment on the choreography. We knew that we wanted to kind of have like one of the main leads as a dancer. I think that was the concept even before we knew we were going to do a documentary together. Andrew and I were kind of talking about, and especially a mute dancer, that leaves a lot of space in the script, in the story, that's silent. And so that communication had to happen, whether it was through a journal between each other or dance, because that's more in Bee's world. And so, yeah, it was really exciting to kind of fill in what the lines would have been written as, but that would intimidate me to write a script right now, but to write feelings and lines of dance is totally in my wheelhouse. So that was kind of cool, kind of my way to write into it. It was in combination different choreography styles. Like for the big group dance, that took hours of me lying on my bed and picturing it and trying a few things, and it took a lot of hours and like layering. And then there was some forms where I would just direct the dancers' movement, either by putting on music and giving them emotions and kind of like inspiration for their movement. That dance in the apartment, I actually choreographed that on the spot, which is crazy because I just didn't have time. There was just things I couldn't get to. And so I was definitely anxious waking up that morning. I think everyone kind of woke up anxious and like tired and on edge, and it was gray, but it was good because we were living the movie. In that scene, we were supposed to feel a little anxious. And so I think that directly influenced the choreography, but it was cool. We were just in this space and like marched through, and I just honestly choreographed it, and we practiced a few times. And I guess I was choreographing it also in the thought of course, directing, but also director of photography. So I would think like, oh, if they're going to drop down, we could like peer through this middle island. And, I was kind of just like organically directing it, which I love that kind of style. I know it's not always possible for every production, but I think really great art can be grown organically. So that was a really fun one. And we always had like music going on during the shoots. to kind of set the mood and set the tone, because we knew a lot was going to be, wiped out and rewritten into the music. So some dances I choreographed to a song and like definitely was a little attached to it, but we didn't have the rights to the song, so it would go away. And then the musicians would come in and compose to the choreography that was to our picture lock. And that was also a really cool process to find myself attached to a song that I choreographed to and then have it pulled out and something like honestly more gorgeous to come out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was that the case with the big dance, or was that the case with a lot of the dances? Okay.
The two dances that I got to keep the songs were Invincible by Big Wild, and then Hey Marseille, the Grant Park scene.
Okay.
So Andrew, then in the script, did you just leave out where you just like dance portion here and like kind of like what you wanted in there? Or was that kind of like between the two of you kind of sat down where like, Meredith, I want to include dance in this, and then like where can we kind of fit it in?
That's a good question. In the script, I would pretty much leave areas open called dance sequences, and then I would maybe just have like a very short description about like what that dance could be. I think, for example, when Doran and Bee have the dance in the apartment, I'm pretty sure like that was written like Doran and Bee fight.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of named the dances, which was nice. Like the main group dance was called the society dance. So we had some terminology to share, like to refer to the dance sequences. Yeah, but there was just like space in the script. We felt that in the read-throughs early on. And the read-throughs were also so interesting because there was so much quiet time because Bee, she doesn't respond. It really is actually such an important part of the story. The more like I think about it and watch it, like her silence is like the magic, and really is why Doran can figure out his purpose.
Yeah, I just kind of want to know more about directing an actor with no dialogue, and we also know Jordan, and she's awesome. Her voice in the film is so present. Like she doesn't seem like a character with no dialogue. And also it's interesting because she's a woman playing opposite a man who does speak, but his voice doesn't dominate hers. Like hers almost dominates him in a way, at least for me, like my reading of it. I just like, how did you go about directing an actor with no dialogue, and how did you make sure that voice was present?
First of all, it helped that Jordan was one of my very best friends. So we already had quite a good connection together. I'm pretty connected to her soul, and especially through her eyes. I mean, there's a very famous quote that your eyes are the pathway to your soul.
Yep.
And so I feel like that was super true for Bee. It was funny, actually, a fun fact behind Jordan in this role. Well, sad fact. She had some kind of vocal surgery. Andrew, I can't remember what for. Do you remember?
I think she had something removed on her vocal cord or something.
Yeah, there was something wrong with her vocal cord, and she actually couldn't speak for a week. Legit.
Wow.
And so maybe that's kind of where some inspiration just like naturally came. I'm not quite sure, but it was definitely a hoot to be either like texting or like writing back and forth in bed, because she actually really went through that whole aerial moment of losing her voice. To be honest, it wasn't that hard. Maybe because I direct dancers a lot and they're kind of mute. I mean, it's like, how do you present yourself gracefully or like strong? I think it truly comes very naturally with my experience with directing dancers. So for that, I want to thank Andrew for giving that first pairing of lead in it, like the first movie that I directed. Like it was super in my wheelhouse. I think I honestly would have been more intimidated with two actors that are lead, that I had to really create that chemistry back and forth with lines. Her role in Jordan's life is so important because all the other women in his life have a nagging sense of voice and a pestering sense of voice, like a voice with a lot of like pressure. And for him to experience not having that in a relationship with a woman, I think really gave him the quiet space to actually think and to actually speak out loud. And you can see throughout the film, he starts sharing more and more deeper thoughts, like when they're in the park and he's starting to talk about icons in history that inspire him and questioning life. Like, I feel like you can see the silence is doing him well. I think was like the biggest part of him finding his purpose.
I think back to at the beginning of the film, Doran and Jules are talking up on a balcony and they're both like having separate conversations like on their own, but they're talking to each other, but they're more like talking at each other. And it's almost like Doran needs someone that he can kind of just, get his side out. Obviously B is interactive with him and having those conversations, but he like almost needs to just be able to like spew things out. And she's kind of a good person for that.
So true. I love the detail you guys are picking up.
I just feel like Jules is the coworker that we all know and love. Like everyone at some point who has worked in some sort of like service industry or like minimum wage job has a coworker like Jules, and we treasure them.
Yeah.
Thank God for Jules.
Andrew, do you have anything to add to this B conversation and like how you went about writing her as a character? Like, was that more, I don't know, I guess this is all collaborative. So you guys crafted these characters together, but like what was the writing process of that like for you?
It was very collaborative. I did put my faith in Meredith and in Jordan because I knew that like any sort of like directions written into the script, I kind of had a feeling that Jordan would be able to like put a level of emotion into that, and then Meredith would be able to capture that as her way of speaking. I guess I would say two things. I would say A, like really studying that communication without words. Some of the most provocative moments on camera, some of the most important parts of stories are the moments that we don't hear dialogue, kind of those moments in between. And second of all, I also just thought it would be really interesting to write a character that has a disability, writing one of the leading roles, especially like a beautiful leading female that Jordan O'Meish plays, to have her so evidently not exactly perfect the way that we would expect that role to be, I think was something that I was thinking about while I was at least writing the script.
We definitely toyed around too, like, does she know sign language? Because we were kind of getting caught up with like the practicalness of someone who is mute. So how do they communicate? There are different ways, and sign language is one of them, but it wasn't clicking, and I feel like I'm understanding this right now. I think because like we were trying to go too practical with that approach, because this movie is grounded in magical realism for sure. So that was the key for us, I think, not including like, okay, so how does she actually live her life and not speak to anyone? She has this incredible gift of dance and is a working professional on a company and, has a beautiful relationship with another man without speaking. So I think that was like one way to just like keep and honor the magical realism in the story.
Like it's all supposed to feel out of a storybook, even though it's grounded on the streets of Chicago and it's very real. I think really wanted this to be a story that feels almost like a little urban fairy tale.
Yeah.
Right. And we honestly, from early on and throughout creating this movie and up until the, very end of post-production, we really were toying around like, is B real? And there's even a line of, where's B? And the dancer is like, who?
Yeah.
Because we wanted to kind of like hint like maybe she never was even existed. She's just kind of this like figure that could be easily taken away. But, I think at the end of the day, she existed and was easily gone as if she could have been a ghost. It was at least fun to kind of play around in the creation of it.
When I tell you I gasped, like on almost spit out my water, I was like, no freaking way. And then they're like, just kidding. I was like, those sneaky little people.
Because then I was thinking back, I'm like, when they got in the elevator after dance class, I'm like, there was an attendant in the elevator. So like she wouldn't have had to press the button to like get in or on the floor. And then I was thinking back, I'm like, did she walk through any doors? Like, did she open anything? I was like running back through everything. Any listeners of the pod know I don't know, a few months back, we did an entire episode dedicated to coming of age films because it's one of Katie's favorite. It's like my absolute favorite in like books and in movies and television. And so I kind of wanted to talk about, Andrew, you said like you write what you know. I mean, everyone kind of right now, like we're all around the same age. So this transition that Doran is going through, he's like, is he 21 in the film?
Around there.
Okay.
Around there.
In his early 20s. I think a lot of people our age can maybe relate to the conversations that he's having with his mom. I know Katie and I were both like, we literally just had a conversation with both of our parents that sounded exactly like that. And I just want to know like why you chose to tell a coming of age story, besides maybe just the fact that it's something that you know, like, and then the spin that you put on it, because it's a pretty standard story when you break it down to like a coming of age formula, but everyone has like a very different take on it because everyone has a very different experience. So what was that like writing that?
Thank you for like noticing those themes. And it's honestly like very, it's a compliment to hear that you've had these kinds of conversations. I know I've had those kinds of conversations, and I thought that like other people in my life were having those kinds of conversations. So I felt me at 20 when I was writing this script and about to graduate college, I was like, I think this is a real problem that our generation is facing right now. Like I think, and it's really not like a big global problem or anything, but it's like it's a problem inside of all of us that like we feel as though there are all of these expectations that we have to like follow through with. But suddenly in our lives, like we finish college, or if you don't go to college, you finish high school, and suddenly there isn't like a guidebook anymore. There isn't a place you have to be at 9 a.m. and a place that you have to be at night, but like you are kind of in control of your own life. And no one gives us the time to figure out how we want to spend that. As much as it's a coming of age story for our generation, I think it's also like a response to this problem that we have when we're in our early 20s. We don't really have this space and time to think about what we want. You know, like I am an artist, but I hope that this story resonates with people who aren't artists as well. It's just sort of a tribute to the unknowing and how important the unknowing actually is.
Part of the coming of age story is definitely like I'm not going to use like child, but like, so in this certain situation, someone in their early 20s and their parents, and like the dynamic between Doran and his mom is kind of going through a similar thing with her, like trying her cooking classes, and then she's painting, and she's trying to also figure out like what her purpose is after her kids have grown up, because like parents, not like all parents, but like can devote their entire lives to their children, and then once they're like grown up and out living their own lives, they're kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do now? So it's interesting to see the parallel between Doran's story and his mom, that while they're different ages, they're both having this very same experience and struggle.
At the end of the day, we're always coming of age. There is never a point in our life where we're not coming of age. I think it just starts to happen when our brain starts to kind of, like, I even take that back. I even think since childhood. And so I think that like Doran is so caught up in his own journey, right? Like he doesn't want a 9-to-5 desk job. He doesn't want to get stuck in rush hour. He like can tell you everything he doesn't want, but he doesn't know what he does want. And his mother also doesn't know what she wants, but she's trying all these things that she thinks she should like because Tammy on floor 11 says that's the thing she needs to do.
Because they're scrapbooking now.
They're scrapbooking. And so I think like in general, like maybe the person he's arguing with, his mother, like maybe they should have just sat down and had a real conversation about like what they're both interested in. People don't do that. People really don't like to reach out for help. And so we put ourselves in these boxes and struggle through these like internal crises on our own. I don't think we should.
Well, it was really such a beautiful thing to hear you reiterate Adele's coming of age story too, because it's so true. Like we say it's a coming of age, yes, for people our age, but it's also really incredible for, you know, the adults who watch this, who either can connect because they have a child like Doran, or yeah, they don't have kids anymore and now they're struggling. with a whole new coming of age. So it's just incredible you picked up on that as well.
It's frustrating too because it's like, why are we all going through this? Especially now with COVID and like as a society, we're all just like, something's not right. Like we're doing something wrong. Why are we all like unhappy? And I'm not like speaking for like everybody's unhappy, but it just seems like nobody wants to like no one wants to live to work anymore, it seems like. And people are just kind of finally breaking out of this thing. But it's like, how do we break out of it? It just feels like we're all at this point where it's like, we don't want to do this anymore, but like no one's really talking about it in like a serious way. Like what Andrew just said, like if Adele and Doran just sat down and talked. Cause like when she said, "What's the plan?" I was like triggered by that. I was like, oh my God, I just can't. Like, cause I'm literally asking myself that every day. Like my parents are kind of like, "What's the plan?" And I'm just like, I don't know. You'll see. It's a surprise. But it feels like so often in our world today, like, what are you interested in and how can you commodify that? Like, how can you turn that into an income? Whereas, like, I like how the resolution of this film just feels like it's not an arrival at like, he has come of age and this is the end. It's just like a step in the right direction and like he's found what he loves, but not necessarily like his new job or like, does that make sense? I guess what I'm
Yeah, it's like finding confidence. I
yeah.
think, you know, I confidence is belief in yourself. And he was confident enough to tell his mother, like, I like writing and I like poetry and I'm going to try to publish my own poems.
We love a realistic ending here. I don't like it when it's tied up in a bow. And I really like that it wasn't all of a sudden like, oh, look, everything's figured out now all of a sudden. I like that it was left more open-ended. He comes home with those flowers and I think Adele's scrapbooking on the counter maybe, and he's like in a really good mood and he's like very excited and he just like feels optimistic. And then the second that she starts like kind of pressing him, just like asking him basic questions, just like, you know, what are you thinking about doing? Do you like the idea of moving and this and that? And he like immediately gets kind of defensive about it and he's like, well, now you just ruined my mood. I felt too, I'm like that. I get like how Katie said she was triggered by the other line. I was triggered by that because I know sometimes my parents will just be like, I'm just trying to ask you a question about like what you like. And you immediately kind of get defensive or like, I know I immediately kind of get defensive because I feel like as a creative person, it's not like necessarily the vibe that they're looking for. So I immediately try to like defend it before just explaining it. And it was really nice to then see like them have that argument, but then later on both be able to sit down and flesh it out a bit and him feel comfortable to be able to be like, I just want to try to write and that's what I'm going to do.
That was why it was really important for me that the final scene of dialogue was between Doran and his mother. Because I mean, I feel like there were so many options with like how to, well, the final scene is with him and Nasser, the cigar man. The full, really fleshed out dialogue is between Adele and Doran. And I think that like it's kind of like the conversation that could have happened from the start. They just kept on like triggering each other in different ways, which is so easy to do with your mother because she's the one who's been with you your whole life. But it's like they kind of sit down, chat. Kind of at the end of Call Me By Your Name, how Elio and his father have this like huge dialogue that kind of just like encapsulates the mood of the story.
Another realistic ending where it does not end happy that I love. I mean, it's sad, but that fireplace moment. Oh,
don't even bring it up. But yeah, I just love the realistic qualities of this. I think I'm just in a season of my own life where I could really relate to Doran and this feeling of like, hurry up and figure out what you're doing. What is your path? Like, define yourself now, but also like not wanting to do that prematurely and become like going down a path that you halfway down realize you don't want anymore, or like rushing into something that you don't actually like. I just think I can personally relate to it. And I think a lot of people can relate to it. It's just, we're not allowed to just be and like kind of test things out. We're from such a young age, like everybody asks us what we want to be when we grow up, and like we're constantly being told to define ourselves like throughout our lives. And at some point it gets to be serious, like when you decide what you want to study in college, and like, okay, you've been saying all your life like what you like and who you are, but now it's like really definitively choosing. And there's different moments for different people, like whether or not you go to college or whatever. But I don't know, I just like the way that this film shows one person's struggle with it, but it's so relatable, even if you're not an artist or not a writer.
Julie Medina, the mother, she even kind of opened up. She's like, I've tried so many things throughout my life. Like, she kind of was kind of vulnerable with like all the different careers that she's bounced to. And she was actually just getting into acting when we met her, and we had an audition with her through Backstage, and she's still on the acting game.
Cool.
Oh, I'm on Facebook, and I'm like, I just keep seeing her like, just got cast in a commercial, and so she's totally like still trying to pursue acting, which warms my heart so much, because she didn't have too much experience early on, but knew she had an interest. And I would say the same thing, I mean, for Andrew and I, but I'll speak for myself. Like, I didn't really know I wanted to make movies, and now I still find myself pursuing that in this path. And I almost fear, like, I'm like, oh, I hope I don't, like, there's still a fear of like, okay, I found it, I hope it happens, or like, I hope that I don't burn out, or I hope I am good enough, you know, like I still have some like doubts in the new path, even though I'm recognizing an interest and passion. So I think it's just it's a scary thing, following your dreams and doing what you want. It's not that scary to, you know, go and stamp your thing and clock in, clock out to something that you're not passionate about. That there's no fear in that.
Right.
So it does take courage.
Just wow, y'all. Where are we even at, Michaela? Of course we deviated, and now
I mean, it wouldn't be us if we followed our plans. Andrew, you kind of talked about music a little bit earlier in the score. Katie, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I guess I'm just so thrown because I assumed wrongfully that, I guess I just had a wrong assumption about the music acquisition process of this whole thing. Andrew, you composed this film and scored this film, but then there's also like bands and musical artists who you guys got the rights to their songs. I love the music in this. It's so good and so fitting. So yeah, if you guys both want to talk, or Andrew, about your composition and everything, the process of all of that.
When we were in post-production and the film got edited and stringed together and it was ready for music, like Meredith kind of turned to me and suggested that I compose a score for the film. And I was definitely very nervous at first. It's funny, my first real interest in life was the piano. I started playing piano when I was 5, and actually like the thing that I did while I was like in elementary school and middle school, and I had to stop for medical reasons, but regardless, I like kept playing. And so I was really, really excited to like jump back behind the piano and compose. And I was so lucky to have the honor of working with Todd Allworm and Isaiah Sanderman and John Golden and Clarice Taylor. And it was a team of us 5. We met in my living room 3 days a week for a month, and we watched the film with no music, and we composed it together. I had created some themes. I had worked with a dear friend, Molly Coleman, and with Meredith too, just about like where we wanted the musical story to go. Having written it, it really felt like this was like a chance for me to write this film again, to kind of come in now and like write in like this new musical story. It was really cool process. The musicians and I went from my living room into a studio where Jeremy Cosley, our audio engineer, helped us bring it all together. And you can actually download the score on Spotify and Apple Music. And
cool.
It's actually kind of fun to just like, if you're studying or reading or hungover, like,
yeah,
it's a really like slow, cinematic, soothing kind of score you can listen to. I was really inspired by movies like Amelie, By Your Name, and Black Swan. Thought like Perks of Being a Wallflower was also kind of like an inspo, especially when it came to like featured music. So like we had the score, but then on top of that, we were we were really excited to collaborate with 6 different artists to feature
Mm-hmm.
their music on the score. So the musical journey of the film was like a really exciting like world and art project of its own. I would definitely say like coming out of it, like the music was almost like a mini project within this giant project. Was there anything that you wanted to add, Meredith? I know that like you had a lot at least to do with like inputting the music into the story after it was being done composed. And
yeah, well, I think you really explained that pretty eloquently. It was a very cool process, and it was weird. I was kind of like kicked out of Chicago when this was happening because I really injured my foot, which is just like the theme of my life. I was injured, and I was back here in Vail, Colorado, recovering, and yeah, I think it was a good test of babysitters here, moms letting go. You know, it was definitely a moment of trust, and it was weird, and I felt isolated, and I think that was a hard time, but it was just like the music is as important. I mean, it's so important to the story, and the cut version always before you add music and color. I mean, it's like, oh, it's almost hard to watch, but I think that the musicians were really excited. Like that was a blank canvas to them, but it was the hardest cut to turn over, I will say. But the music, I mean, it just brought it to life. And it was like one of the very last things we did with post-production. And we got to hear some other voices, like the musicians and a few other people kind of give their input on some of the sound mixing. I feel like that was just a stressful part because we were like trying to finish, and like we had a premiere in a month. I mean, it was like things really came together like very quickly. Like I truly think we like wrapped the cut we premiered
the day before.
like 48 hours before.
Yeah. Wow.
It was a little crazy, but we could have gone at each stage for 5 times as long as we wanted to. Like it wouldn't get done then. You know, like we wanted to do this, to do it, to get it over, to move on. But not to like get it over with, but like, you know, we wanted to accomplish it. So deadlines, yes, was very important process. And like, I think I'm still very stunned that the score was composed in a month.
That's insane.
It's insane. And so I think that really is an ode to the musicians that were involved and creating choreography right before we were going to film. You know, it's a similar pressure of kind of relying on your improv skills and really listening and having that dialogue with those instruments. But I will say, like, recording it at Mystery Street Recording Studio in Chicago was one of the most fun days ever. Like, on the top 5 moments. It was just so cool to be in a recording studio.
And I got ill like the last day of recording. So ill. I like showed up after like a month, like a little over a month, like working on the score, creating the score, improvising it. We like show up at the studio. I have like yellow fever. I like show up like crippled. I'm like at the piano, like trying, like every time I finish a song, I like collapse on the couch. I was like, it was so like everything felt so dramatic in the moment. There was another moment we were rushing to the Vail Film Festival, and like the movie is exporting on Meredith's computer to send to the Vail Film Festival people. We're running through security. The security guard is like, you need to close the computer to put it through the security thing. And she's like, sir, I can't close the computer. The movie's exporting.
Oh my God.
In the Uber, like both ways, it was so stressful. And then like we had to figure out the challenge of like getting it on a Blu-ray. Like never freaking done that before, you know, and like the producers of the festival are waiting for this Blu-ray. Like literally, like we arrive in Vail, and I like finally figure it out. I check it. And as I push play, I get the call from the main directors of the festival. Like, do you have it? I'm like, yes, I do. I've got the Blu-ray. Like literally in the moment I push play, because we had a lot of trouble like figuring that out too. Getting ready for our festival premiere was really stressful, because I think we really didn't want to like anticipate that we were going to get in, because it was a long shot. Getting into a festival is hard. And so I couldn't believe when we found out the news, and we had a lot of housekeeping to do to get ready for that moment.
It's just wild to me that all happened within a month, like that you guys were able to do that, because music is like basically a character in a film. Like it's so important. It's like make or break. Katie, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up Star Wars here for a second. Guys, you know I couldn't get through an episode without bringing it up. But the music in Star Wars is like it's so prevalent and such a huge part of the storytelling that without it, like what even is Star Wars then without it? That and this too, it's present, but it's not like distracting. It's just like so complimentary to everything. And I can't believe that you guys did that in a month.
And this film too, like feels like almost like a love story for the arts. It's like such a combination of so many art forms, like obviously language and like writing and dance and movement and like physical expression, and then the music too. I think the music is all the more important in this because of the dance and because there's a character who doesn't speak. It's like it's speaking more, if that makes sense.
Totally. It fills in the silence.
It was a bit untraditional that we composed music to choreography.
Yeah.
Typical choreographers like listen to music and then choreograph to the music. So if there's any like choreographers and musicians out there collaborating, like flipping the roles a little bit and creating the choreo first and then almost like choreographing music to the choreography is kind of it was definitely an experiment. We didn't know how it was going to turn out, but it was actually like quite cool for the musicians to like see movement and then create musical representations of that movement.
That's wild. I mean, like, and there's no way just watching the film for you to know that like that's how the process went, and it's super unconventional. I mean, I've never heard of that before, but it almost is like fitting for this film for some reason, just like with expressing things in different ways and like finding ways to express yourself differently when there's like a barrier. So it works. I don't know.
Yeah. I did this exercise once in college. We collaborated with the music conservatory, and yeah, we both came in prepped. I say this because this might be a good exercise for people who are interested in this. We both groups were prepped with a song either that they already know and play together, or a dance that the dancers dance together. Basically, we traded off. So like the dancers would do a dance and the musicians improv to the dance that they were seeing, and then it was flipped. I don't know. It's just, it's a different form than kind of like putting the work in and perfecting it and then presenting it. I think it just can show true artistry.
And even when we were like bringing on musicians, we were very frank about this being an improvised kind of score. I wasn't like, I'm not going to compose for cello. Our cellist composed their own cello line within something else. Like like we would watch scenes and like whoever like felt the impulse to start playing something would go, and then we would all be able to then maybe complement what that instrument wanted in that moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there was a woman there, Clarice, who was a part of it, and she documented like what they were doing, so the precious moments like caught on camera, but in this case she did a lot of the notation, which I think they were all very grateful for.
Oh, so grateful, because the score was born out of a lot of improv, and in order for us to remember, because I mean, was Clarice, like we would go into the studio and she would really helpfully remind us, like, you came in 2 bars in, you came in here, this is what you did for the second time. And it's like, okay, great, I remember writing this, but I needed you to tell me because we just composed 2 hours of music.
Yeah, that's wild, but so necessary. This is like not part of our plan to ask you guys, but I'm just like, I'm a aspiring filmmaker, and just like listening to you guys talk about this process, the thing running through my mind is like, this sounds so hard, like, so many people being a part of this process, and like I'm just so lost. Like how did you do this? Like how did you had to pay people, like they weren't volunteers, right? I think just anybody who's listening to this and who might be interested in breaking into this industry, this all seems so unattainable, but like you guys clearly did it. So like it's a broad question, but like how did you do that? Like how did you get these people to do this?
Well, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
It's totally that concept. one bite at a time. And like we both had to remind each other of that because it is so overwhelming. There were so many moving parts, and like it was hard because we had to think ahead, but we also had to just like focus on the task at hand, really prioritize what was important then, you know, because like when we were prepping this movie and getting it to a schedule, we definitely were not thinking about an original score. I don't think we even had we didn't even say it yet, even though maybe we thought about it. Like we had to be very delicate on what we said, and we would both have to remind each other that we would get really excited and passionate, and that is 100% necessary. Passion is the fuel. And like a writer wrote about us once, and she put it like, your passion was your ticket in. It's so true. Like, don't come and collaborate with us if you don't have passion and a desire to learn more. So our definitely like first way we got people involved was if we really needed something, like, oh, we can't do this, let's bring this person on. So it was out of the needs that Andrew and I couldn't really fill. I would say we did not have a budget that could pay for everyone. Andrew and I haven't got a cent from this project, you know, like we're actually still, you know, personally investing into this endeavor, but it's absolutely worth it. And like I wouldn't want any money for this because, you know, only a few people really did get paid, and those are the people that like were full-time work, you know, like our designers, like our first editor, our sound designer, you know, some stipends here and there for people, of course.
And, you know, making a film is a business as well. And like the first question you ask is, what is your business doing? Who is your community? Who is your audience? And I think Meredith and I may have had this like idea to create something artistic. We were lucky enough to be part of an expansive community of artists, and everyone was looking to build their resumes. Everyone was looking to build their portfolios. So we were like, this is the only time we can make our first film, because everyone here would want to be a part of something like this. You know, like whether you're an actor who needs footage for their reel, whether you're an editor who needs their first showcase of their work. And so like when we sat down with people, you know, for anyone out there who's like really trying to produce their first film, really take a look at who's in your community and like who can play your roles. Like what can you start that you know that you'll have at least 60% of the people you need, you can text them, or you can start to put feelers out there. And don't do it alone. Meredith and I really like leaned on each other too. Like every time there was a moment where it was about to fail, or we thought we were going crazy, or we were up so late, like there was always like the other half of that producing leg. Like there was always one person that could jump into the driver's seat when the other person couldn't. We leaned on each other. We leaned on our community. We had an amazing group of friends who really believed in us. And like, as Meredith said, like when we would like sit down to hire people, and a lot of our business team were interns. We partnered with 6 universities across the Chicagoland area and said we were looking for interns. And then instead of calling them internships, we called them positions. So you could come and work for us for your spring semester and give you school credit. So though we couldn't pay you, you came on and did marketing for us for 4 months, and then didn't have to take 3 credits that semester in your class. So like we really tried to utilize all of the different communities we could. And we told people like, if this isn't something, like this is hard work and you need passion. And if this isn't something you can like jump into, then like it may not be a good fit. Like we almost kind of scared people the first time.
But I also want to say, I don't think it was always that. I think like there was an element of, you know, like our producer's hat, going back to the changing hats, we had to put on our hats. And even if we were not feeling it, like if I wanted to, with Andrew, you know, like if we had tips, we still were the duo. And like, we still had to bring our A game, and like, it kind of was a performance in a way. And like, anytime we sat down with someone new, you bet you we were like glowing with passion. Like we kind of had to, excite them and believe that like our whole hearts are in this. Like, please join us. It's going to be fun. We'll get to all move forward stronger. And like, it's been honestly really satisfying to like help people out with recommendations, like putting good words in. I've gotten a lot of people jobs, which makes me feel super good. And that's what it's about. Like Andrew and I came together, and like the mission that we wanted to put forth was to raise artists up. And I still believe that to be true in my life's mission right now as my producer's mission. So yeah, I think that was a good point, Andrew, that you brought up, was like, know what you're about. Like, why are you guys getting together? And yeah, you just to like really collaborate on this like idea of shared vision was very important.
You can just tell like between the two of you, like one, just how like well your dynamic works together, which like in a partnership, you need to have that. Like I know for Katie and I, we've talked often that like being the two creative friends, like kind of in our circle, like it was just natural that we kind of decided to do this together. But also just like she's one of the only people that I knew I could trust and rely on. And like if Katie says that she's going to do something, like she's going to do it. If we need the episode out by Monday on Wednesday, like I can trust that it's going to be edited and done. And in this, like I can't imagine the stakes of like you two both needing to rely on each other. And on those off days, like you said, Meredith, if sometimes like one of you is having, a bit of a moment or just not feeling it that day, like you had to be able to trust that the other person could kind of like pick you up a bit and create that passion and excitement on set all the time.
And that always helps too, like when we're pitching someone, or we're like, it's like the pitch feeling, whether it's not really like pitching a new show or anything, but like we have to present ourselves professionally for the grant committee and for like the random person at the post house down in, I forget the area, Andrew, down where Camilla was.
Oh, at Cinespace?
At Cinespace, someone reached out and wanted a meeting, and like these meetings with some kind of, or like interviews on TV or anything, like it definitely is nice to have a duo, because like whenever we didn't know what to say, or like we're at the point where we could finish each other's sentences, and that flows very well for the external view.
It's fun. Like film is glamorous and exciting, and we were able to like just get dressed up and like go to events and like network. Like anytime there was an event and we had the day off, you bet your asses we showed up and just like told people about what we were doing. And like we met a lot of friends, and we made new connections that way, because like I think if you're passionate about something, you have to make the space to tell people. You have to like walk in like what you're doing sometimes, even if it's not the full truth. I think that like you'll catch up with yourself. But like, yeah, we had to fundraise. I mean, we applied for a grant. Again, any indie filmmakers out there or people who want to really try this, like there are grants out there, and like our grant was like 19 pages and it really outlined what we were doing. I think the applying for grants actually like really focuses your vision. Some of the financial calendars we made for the grant, we ended up using down the line. So like that was,
yeah, and it legitimized it. I don't think it would be the same without that grant. So that's why we're so grateful, is the Performing Social Justice grant with the Chicago College of Performing Arts, and truly getting that, because that was early on, even before production. And it just like legitimized us. Yeah, and like we had to like really zone in. Like it actually unified us as a partnership, I think, because we had to convince it on paper that we deserved this money. And then that helped, later on with the crowdfunding. And I was in a nonprofit space a lot. I think Andrew too, but like I was learning how to fundraise and nonprofit work, and I've done a lot of nonprofit work. So I feel like I pulled that experience with trying to fund a film. But that is the hardest thing about this business, truly, is like getting the funds to do it, because there's never enough, except if you're in the studio business, there you have plenty. But it's possible. It really is possible to do it on a low budget. You just have to get crafty, I guess, and just again, rely on your community.
Writing a script and you've got a low budget, like you can't have aliens land on a new planet. Like what story are you writing? What apartments do you have access to? What city are you already in? We tried to really like create something that was producible, like almost impossible. We knew if we challenged ourselves, it was possible.
Back to kind of how we started this question, like I would have died in my overwhelm and anxiety if I had to take in all the details that we did. And sometimes I do. Like sometimes I get so anxious for everything I've done or everything that I feel like I have to do, like immersing yourself in the present moment, I think would be like important to remember, because it is daunting to think about everything that has to go into a movie. Each step and each phase is so beautiful and so fun in its own way. And so it's almost, I mean, gosh, I hate how often I compare this to a child, but it is so much like being a mother. It's just like everything you have to think about doing right as a mother, but really like just being present and learning as you go, made this possible.
If you're like a young person or any person who wants to make film or like be involved in this industry, it can sometimes feel so unattainable because it is so glamorous, and it is like, when you think about it, it's like Hollywood, and you have to write this amazing thing to like get your golden ticket in, and you get this big break, and then suddenly you're there. And like, that is just so not the truth at all. Like, when you really understand it, like, you don't even have to go to film school necessarily. And there's so, like, if you watch until the end of a movie, all the jobs listed at the end of a movie, like, there's ways for you to get in. I think the coolest job would be like picking the music to be in a movie. Like, I just feel like that would be so cool. So I don't know. I think if you're a young person interested in film listening to this, like, there are ways, and you two are exemplary of that. Like, it is possible if you're passionate about it.
Like, you have to do it yourself. I mean, I feel like we have this idea of like making it instead of living it. If you want to live your dream, then you have to do it and live it. And like, in the beginning, it's not easy, but even if you're working with $1 million or $20 million, it's still going to be hard work. It's just going to be elevated. You're just going to keep leveling up. Like, if you keep waiting to work on something huge in Hollywood, then it's like, how are you going to get there? Like, what's the first step? Don't look at 30,
Right.
Do you guys have any idea what the budget was?
I
turn the question back.
I couldn't.
I'm so interested. Like, give a guess.
I don't even know I'm uneducated in this department. I have no clue what
Well, it's just
anything
like,
would cost.
It's hard to know like what you already had too at your disposal. Like, did you have, because like I said, it looks amazing. So like, did you have that camera beforehand, or did you have to like invest in a super nice camera? So like, I don't know. I'm also somewhat stupid when it comes to money. So like,
you've worked on a film,
Andrew
like
and I
you
could
kind
say
of
the
know
same thing.
Well, yeah, I've worked on
like, it takes time. It takes time to like understand budgets and money, and like, clearly Andrew and I also, like, we're very naive. Like, I swear to you, we didn't think we needed a budget. Like, maybe like a little bit here and there. Like,
yeah,
it still cracks me up on how naive that was. But no, I just, if you had to guess, like, obviously we had resources.
like $100,000.
Okay.
And I'm either way off, because I was thinking like 30. I have no clue what anything costs. Like 30,000.
Seriously, any number.
Okay, I'll go low end then, 30,000.
Okay.
You're much closer.
Wow.
All right. All right.
Oh my God, what I would give for $100,000.
Right.
What could have done with $100,000? Oh my God.
I know.
Well, that's just because I'm, again, like, just thinking about all the people that you had working on this, but like what you said, with people being willing to be a part of this for no money, and again, just the way it looks very well done. So I mean,
well, that is absolutely a huge compliment. And still in Hollywood, 100,000 is micro budget film.
Yeah.
Anything under $1 million is a micro budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pulled this together just over 20 grand.
Wow. That's insane.
There was a moment when we were at the Bell Film Festival, and we were like watching other films at the festival, and they were doing a little talk back after one of the films, and someone asked, like, how did you pull this together with such a low budget of 350 grand? And Meredith and I in our seats, like, we wish someone could have just like panned to our jaws, like,
yeah.
We were like, no way. Like, they cannot sit here and say 350 grand is low, but it is like it is.
Yeah.
You talked a bit about locations and knowing like where you could shoot. Katie, you kind of wanted to talk about that a bit, didn't you? And like the
Well,
flower shop.
yeah, what is this flower shop? Where is that? How did you, I mean, I know like a huge part of producing something is like location scouting. I guess, Andrew, did you like have these locations in mind when you were writing? How did like the flower shop? I'm just so intrigued. Like, what is that?
Oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful temple in the middle of the city. It's truly like located in it's in Lincoln Park, Old Town area. I remember going to this flower shop and I had because Andrew wrote in the flower shop and I know he did that because he knew it was producible. Like, yeah, there's a flower shop in the city.
The only location actually I knew that we didn't have a connection to actually.
Okay.
It was the one
Right.
I was like, let's just find one. Because everything else I kind of knew we'd be able to get.
But still it was like feasible. And so I was like, I saw this beautiful flower shop in Old Town. Like, let's go. And that was so fun, like location scouting, because it's like one of the first things you do. We were walking around and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. But there was a lot of people and we heard the store's hours and it was like basically 24/7. I mean, basically they were open every single day. And so I was like, okay, this could maybe be a problem because we would take away business and stuff like that. And then we were kind of in discussions with them and they're like, we actually have a coach house at a different location down the street, which might be even better for you guys. And that's just for prep for the flowers. And we walk in and it's like, oh, you brought us to a movie set. Like,
It's so
it
beautiful.
was so beautiful. So we were so fortunate. It's called A New Leaf in Chicago, and able to use a lot of their arrangements just in the shots, like because the coach house was it was a blank canvas. So we pulled in bring flowers in there, and then the upstairs is just like a collection of beautiful antiques that I don't know really who designed that. And so we gave production design to A New Leaf because
Yeah.
like it just naturally came like that. And we obviously like shifted it around, but it was perfect because it was a coach house. It wasn't like a store we had to like dodge customers at.
Yeah. That sounds so nice.
It was a special place for every single person involved, and I think a special place for all the viewers to get to see.
Yeah. I was
Mhm.
like, how did they get that? Like that's just so cool that worked out like that.
Like now that I'm in Los Angeles, I'm realizing it's so much harder to actually do indie filmmaking here.
Yeah.
Because in Chicago, it's exciting for someone to hear that someone's interested in filming in their local business, excited for you, and typically want to like make your experience nice.
And it's so funny because two of the locations, including A New Leaf and the Artist Cafe, both closed like months after we were filming. Maybe like A New Leaf was recently closed, but like it kind of feels special for us that we were like able to capture these iconic places in Chicago before like they're gone, and they've both been around for so many years. So there's something kind of creepy with that too.
Yeah.
I don't know whose choice or idea it was to put the chapters in there, but like as someone who just like eats, sleeps, breathes books, I liked that for like my mind to like follow that chronological order a bit. So what was the decision behind like breaking up the movie into the 5 chapters?
I am a reader myself. Like I think most of my inspiration comes from books, and I think even some of the best movies are based off books. So why can't we just write movies like books? And I just like love when things are organized in that fashion. I think Meredith and I both wanted the film to have a storybook feel. And so I thought it would be fun. I thought it was different. Like I think it's nice to have things separated like that. Like when you go to the theater and you get your playbill, you can like open up your playbill and see like typically a list of you see act 1 and then like the scenes in the musical numbers, act 2 scenes in the musical numbers, and like obviously you can't do that for a film, but I thought like inserting sections would like help clarify the story.
And it created a vernacular for us to know like where we were, like, oh, it's in chapter 3. And it also helped, I think, post-production, just organization in general, and just like getting through the chunks. Like even if you don't display, oh, this is chapter 5, I think it's actually a very brilliant way to kind of set it up. And because movies are so big, like it's a nice way to organize it.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Who's the butterfly?
Oh my gosh. We kind of talked about this last night when we were talking.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know, because you would think like Doran is the first answer, but I don't know. I feel like Doran, his mom, and B are all like butterflies in their own way. I don't know.
Because like B, they were like, she decided that it was, or did she was it in her text where she was like, it was just time to move on after she got
Yeah.
out in LA? So like part of me would think that it would be her. And then she sent the butterfly emojis. But I feel like, is that too obvious? That
Who is the butterfly? Or are you not at liberty to say?
I'm not really at liberty to say,
Okay.
but I feel like you're on the right track. I feel like everyone is kind of their own butterfly.
There's nothing about a caterpillar that indicates that it's going to be a butterfly. I always say we're constantly in full bloom. Like we never arrive at anything. We're just constantly who we're meant to be. And like a lot of people kind of, and me included, are like, once I do this, then I'll be this, if that makes sense. Or just like living life as there's like this non-existent point of arrival, but it's like we have arrived already. So this movie definitely embodies that for sure.
There is a promise that you are going to, like there is a promise that the caterpillar will become the butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like so special that's the title of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you guys, I'm so glad that we got to watch this movie and talk with you. It's such a special experience, like to have this intimate conversation with the people behind a film.
Well, it was an honor to talk to you guys. Already watching it, I feel like we talked to a lot of people that haven't watched it. We're like, you're gonna love this movie.
Yeah.
But like it is so refreshing to speak in detail of movie advocates that like pick up on everything. Like it's so heartwarming to know there's people out there that are like dissecting this movie. I remember Andrew once said like, oh man, I don't want to botch it, but like I remember you alluding to you're writing with like hopes that it would be analyzed like by writers or something. I think discussions from playwrights, movies, it's just like that's what it's about, because there's a lot of intent put in behind all of this. And like Andrew and I could talk hours because we've spent hours in the work. And so it's just like honestly a treat.
Thank you just for like your perspective and your attention to details. Like it's really an honor just to like chat about something that you devote your heart and soul to, and then have people who analyze films actually like ask us questions about the whole process. Like the honor is ours.
We are all for creative collaboration. Popcorn Chats is so lucky to have the two of you.
Do you guys have anything that you want to plug? I mean, we'll get your like social medias, your website, and put it in the description. We'll put like, I think we could probably do an Amazon Prime link even in there to the movie, but like, do you guys want to plug anything on this at all?
Please go watch it on Prime.
Message us, like tell us what you think of the movie.
Yeah.
Leave reviews, leave comments. Like Meredith and I are still going to be doing this and making more work and doing our own things so just like connect with us.
Well, I will plug my favorite podcast called Just Shoot It, since this is a movie podcast. And if you haven't heard, you'll probably will love it. It's a lot about directing and screenwriting and filmmaking in general. I've learned so much from that podcast. So it's crazy to feel like I'm on one being in this discussion with you guys. Thank you again.
Yes, everyone listening, go stream The Promise of the Butterfly on Amazon Prime and follow Meredith and Andrew on all of their platforms. We'll link all of it in the description below in this episode.
Make sure that you are following us on Spotify. That way on your homepage every single Monday, you'll be notified of our new episodes. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you subscribe, give us a rating and review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell. So again, you're notified whenever our new episodes go up. And then as always, Katie and I's Instagram, Twitter, YouTube's, TikToks. Our Popcorn Chats TikTok is in the bio. And yeah, again, thank you, Andrew and Meredith, for coming on. This was like the coolest episode. Sorry, no shade, no tea, Delaney and Olivia. We love you. But this was just like a really, really fun and awesome discussion with both of you.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.